Hello, and welcome to the July sessions of the Seed Savers Exchange conference series, Growing Together, Sharing Seeds, Stories, and Skills. I'm Meredith Burks. I'm Seed Savers Exchange's Communications Director, and I will be your host for our keynote session. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge our community agreements. So we ask that all participants be respectful, be curious, be patient, speak from your own experience, try to avoid jargon where you can, be conscious of intent versus impact, take space that you need and make space, and be sure to take care of yourself. I also want to thank our sponsor. Thank you to United Natural Foods, Inc. for sponsoring this session. UNFI is a wholesaler connecting over 10,000 supplier partners to grocery stores and other value-add food retailers. UNFI strives to make its customers stronger, supply chains better, and find more inspired food solutions. We love having them as a sponsor for today's theme of plant breeding, and their goals match Seed Savers Exchange's mission to protect America's diverse and at-risk food, garden, crop, and diverse and at-risk garden and food crop heritage. And we are so grateful for UNFI's support. Now, I am thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker, Lane Selman. Lane grew up on a citrus farm her Sicilian great-grandparents planted in 1919 on Florida's Space Coast. She earned a bachelor's degree in agronomy and a master's degree in entomology at University of Florida before moving to Oregon in 2000. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Food and Wine, Wall Street Journal, Civil Eats, and many other publications. In 2011, Lane created the Culinary Breeding Network to build communities of plant breeders, seed growers, farmers, produce buyers, chefs, and other stakeholders to improve the quality of vegetables and grains. So if you have questions or comments for Lane, please feel free to enter them in the chat and we'll have time for a short Q&A at the end. Lane, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very excited. And I will hand it over to you. So thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the work that I've done. And I'm hoping that it will prove to be like an inspiration for you in your communities and to take pieces of this and implement it in the areas that you are in this country and beyond if there's others outside of the US that are watching this. As Meredith said, my name is Lane. I work for Oregon State University, and I started an initiative called the Culinary Breeding Network that I'm going to talk to you about today. And really the emphasis that I want to put on that is the most important part of this work, I think, is building community. So I titled this Involving Community in Plant Breeding. So I'm really focused on building community among plant breeders and seed savers, farmers, culinary professionals, home cooks, and just eaters in general to create better varieties for everyone. So I'm just going to go through all of this. Please let me know any questions that you have at the end. I'm very happy to answer those. You can also follow up with me after this. If you want to contact me, I'll have my contact information at the end. So I created the Culinary Breeding Network in 2011 with the mission to build, as I said before, to build these communities of plant breeders, seed growers, farmers, produce buyers, pretty much everyone in the food system. And everyone is in that food system because we all eat, right? To improve the quality in vegetables and grains. And I'll go ahead and add legumes, pulses, fruit, nuts, pretty much anything that we grow that we eat, right? And so this is the idea, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that came about and some of the activities, again, with the idea that I'm hoping to inspire you to incorporate these things into your own community. Okay, so what I kind of do, like, what does this mean to build these communities? So I work at Oregon State University, like I said, and I work with a lot of researchers. And so a lot of times my job in those projects is to be the community like builder, the person that has like the relationships with stakeholders. So I identify and create those relationships for the projects. I build community within the projects. I try to create engagement through interactive events and activities, which I'm going to show you and talk to you a lot about, because I think that these are things that people can incorporate into their own communities, and then develop marketing campaigns. So these are just an example of some of the projects. Sorry, some of the text moved around a little bit when I put it into the Google thing. But this is called value-added grains. This one here with the grains in the top right-hand side. I've worked with Oregon green beans, barley. I'm going to talk to you about this Novik project in a moment. I work a lot with chicories or radicchio and dry farming. So in a lot of these projects, there's research that's happening in the background where there's plant breeding and there's trialing and there's a lot of things that are happening at a university level. And it's my job to kind of bring that to the public so that the public understands the amazing work that's being done in the plant breeding space. And I want to also mention, because I haven't yet, is that all of these projects are focused on organic plant breeding. And so we work with farmers as well as gardeners to develop new varieties. And I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so Novik was a project that I worked on for 12 years, which was pretty amazing because there's not a lot of times we get government funding for that long. It came in 4-year chunks. 3 times it was funded. So Novik stands for the Northern Organic Vegetable Improvement Collaborative, and that was led out of OSU where I work. The lead researcher, if you look at this picture of all these people on the right-hand side with the mustache, kind of Tom Selleck looking guy, that's Jim Myers. He's the plant breeder at OSU, and he led it. Organic Seed Alliance up in Port Townsend, Washington, but works all over the country. University of Wisconsin and Cornell, so in the upper northern tier of the United States. And this was a really cool project that really, to me, represents creating community. The participants were university plant breeders, regional seed companies, and organic market farmers. So they're farmers that were growing vegetables to sell, usually directly to consumers through CSA, through farmers markets, to restaurants. And it was a participatory format. So this is where the community part comes in. So rather than being like a top-down kind of format, it was all of us working together to solve the problems that each of the farmers has identified as what they were needing. So there was more knowledge exchange, there's greater innovation, a more efficient process, a lot of new relationships, and really building bridges between worlds. So these were farmers that were growing produce. They are not seed folks. So it was bringing together the folks that grow the seed that the farmers are going to use. And that resulted in a lot of knowledge exchange that had not been happening before. So one of the projects that we worked on, one of the trials that we worked on during this project was that farmers said that they really wanted to find a OP replacement for a favorite hybrid that they were having trouble finding the quantity of seed that they wanted and seed that wasn't producing off types. So one of the folks that was from the seed community mentioned to the farmers, the fact that you're having a hard time finding the seed and the fact that there's off types means that this variety is not really being maintained and is in risk of being dropped from production. And farmers were relying on it. So instead of relying on a hybrid all the time, they said, let's try to find an open pollinated substitute. So if we wanted to grow our own seed, we could. So this was for a sweet pepper. So we had trials of sweet peppers. This is the hybrid in the middle that we were trying to replace and find an alternative for. And so we grew these out on a lot of different farms and evaluated them. But what we weren't doing at that time was we weren't doing any tastings. So let me back up and say, this is before the Culinary Breeding Network existed. This is how I identified the need for it. So we're all choosing all the farmers with us are choosing the varieties that we want to include in the trials. We're developing the evaluation criteria together. So it's participatory, it's community-based. So we're growing these all out. We're not tasting them yet. So at that point, I started organizing tastings. I was working for a farm, gathering together a farm at the farmers and running the farmers market booth at a big farmers market in Portland, Oregon. So I invited a lot of chefs that I figure chefs are going to be the ones that are going to be able to evaluate these the best. So I invited 25 chefs to come together and taste these peppers raw, sauteed, and roasted, the most typical ways that would be utilized. You can also see in this picture, you could see um, the whole pepper as well as halved so that they could see what the whole thing looked like, because that's how they're going to be buying it when they run into it at the market or something, right? Because we're looking after their eyes first. And it was pretty astonishing what happened from this. We had chefs that would tell me there was 9 different varieties that were in, and breeding lines that were in this tasting. And there were many of them that had this sunken top. And I wasn't asking about like the phenotype, right? Like the appearance, the shape, size, color, anything like that. But the chef said, actually the ones that we really want are the ones that have rounded shoulders. And I apologize, I didn't put this slide in there today, but you can imagine rounded shoulders rather than sunken. And the reason is because there's less waste, because when they're working as a chef, if you can imagine, they're working in a situation where they're cutting up hundreds of these. They want to be very efficient. They need to go fast. You have to stop and pause when you have that sunken down top to kind of cut around that, or you can just cut it off straight, but then that's some waste, right? So then when they were thinking about it from their perspective, from their job, they gave us this feedback, which was really amazing, that I could pass on to the plant breeder and say, hey, when you're breeding for uniformity and yield and architecture and disease resistance and all this, please pay attention and choose the peppers that have that trait. So that was kind of where the Culinary Breeding Network started. That was when I identified we really need to bridge this gap between the breeders and the folks that are creating the new varieties and maintaining those varieties, to have a connection with the folks that are in the end that are actually using it. So the next year, I brought to them Jim Myers. He was working on a mild habanero, so a low heat habanero that was able to ripen in our, I'm in Oregon, so ripen in our, temperate environment. And he was looking at plant architecture and a lot of things that he knew as far as horticulture and goes, and from the farmer point of view, what he wanted. But he really didn't know, like, these are examples of fruits that were in his populations. So there were yellow, orange, red, different intensities of those colors. There's pointed ones or blunt ones. There were all these different shapes and sizes. So we invited the chefs to get together again to be a part of that project. It was basically a selection event, as a plant breeder would call it, to choose your own adventure. Which way do you want to go? And so he utilized that information to then he's finally, this happened in 2012, and now he's because it takes a long time to breed something new, right? He's finally releasing 2 varieties from that, the Nada Hada and the Mild Thing. So those will be released and I think available through Territorial Seed this next year. So keep an eye out on those. These grow very well where we are in the Pacific Northwest. And we're really excited to have these low heat habaneros. But this was like the first example of inviting the extended community, meaning the chefs. So it was chefs and then a few people that make like hot sauces and work with peppers for value added products. So we invited them into the whole plant breeding process to do these selections with us, so that we can have their needs represented and we address those needs in this plant breeding. Okay, so a few more examples of things like this is where on the left-hand side here, this is the patchwork pepper. This came from Michael Mazurek out of Cornell, and this is a field day that we had for Novik. So we have these annual field days where we look at the trials out in the field, but then also we would grow out these breeding populations. And so farmers and chefs each got different color flags, and they would go out in the field and select the plants and or fruits that they really were attracted to and wanted. So this again was a way that we can invite community into the plant breeding process. And then on the right side, this is adaptive seeds. They had a population of gulag stars. This is like a kale, landrace or grex mixture of a lot of different kales, which is really nice. If, as gardeners, we want, or even farmers that want a diversity. But they wanted to select a couple varieties out of that. So they worked with Chef Tim Wastel, who's been someone that's been involved with the Culinary Breeding Network since the beginning. And we would go out in the field and select and have Tim tell us what are the things that he's the most attracted to. What is it that he really wants from like the culinary side and thinking about working with these in the kitchen. So now there's a kale called Simone that is available through adaptive seeds that Tim has selected. Another way we've done this is during COVID. So, I mean, we learned a lot during that we can still involve people even if we can't all get together. So we had shishito trials out and on farms. So this is on the left, this is Adriana that has a farm called Empowered Flowers. We harvested all of those. I would post on Instagram asking people if they wanted to participate in a tasting. We would get those to them. And people, just average consumers, we would give them directions. As you can see, there's QR codes at the top. We give them directions on how to prepare the shishitos and how to do, like, pretty much put together a blind tasting. And you can use seed links for this. There's like a citizen science aspect to that. So maybe many of you that are listening right now have utilized this. So this is a really cool way to just get home cooks, just average consumers involved in evaluating trials with us and being part of the selection of varieties. And so in conjunction with this, we know which ones grew the best in the field, and now we know which ones that consumers like to consume the most. Okay, so this is just more of the different types of tastings. I just wanted to mention that there is this publication, if you're interested, Simple Methods for Market Gardeners to Assess Culinary Quality with Consumers. Anybody can easily organize one of these tasting events. You can do it at a dinner party if you want, and you're a gardener, just for fun. So check that out if you're interested in more information. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about outreach events, because this is really what people can, like, when they think about the Culinary Breeding Network, this is what they're thinking about a lot. And so these are interactive activities, events that convene people, and it's designed to educate the attendees that come and celebrate together as a community with plant breeders, seed growers, farmers, all different folks, right, to show off the work that they have been doing. Okay, so the one that most people like know about and think about the most is the Variety Showcase. Now, this year it's happening. If you are anywhere near Portland, Oregon, tickets are now on sale. It's the 10-year anniversary of this event. It's pretty exciting. 40 tables with plant breeders and our seed professionals and people that are conducting variety trials to show off their work. And they're paired with a chef that makes something really delicious for you to taste with that. So I'm going to show you what some of these tables might look like. This is Bill Tracy's quote, and it really has been very impactful for particularly the public plant breeders, but all the plant breeders, because the folks that are working in seed are oftentimes working more remotely, more in isolation, and don't have that many opportunities to really interact with the public to get their opinions on their work. So this is what I'm trying to do, is create these venues for this type of exchange of information. So Bill's quote was, "The excitement about plant breeders' work was at a level that he had never experienced before." This event is really expanding and enlightening the greater public about plant breeding. And this really is my objective. So let me go through what some of these tables might look like. Oh, I'll tell you, sorry, the purpose I just told you really is to shed light on the importance of organic seed, Why is that? Probably all of you that are watching right now know why organic seed is very important for organic farming systems. Again, most the public does not. They don't know very much about seed at all, and so this is a way to educate them, and kind of like pull back the curtain, as I always say, and see like the wizards in the back that are creating these varieties. Like I said, there's breeders and or seed folks that are I call the curators of the table, that are matched up with chefs, and they are presenting their work. There's a lot of different issues that are being presented, that they're addressing in their work, whether that's reducing chemical usage or addressing climate change or focusing on culinary quality and nutritional value, or just making sure that we preserve biodiversity. There's cultural preservation, there's seed sovereignty and spirituality. There's so many reasons why people work in seed. Okay, so at this event, the attendees get the unique experience to actually talk with the seed folks about these projects and also taste them. So to taste new cultivars or like in process breeding lines and be part of that process. And I really want people to experience joy, discovery, and connection. Okay, so here's a couple of a few tables that are examples when it is presented in this way, where it is lots of varieties side by side that you get to taste, which is a really unique thing, and a lot of people never have this opportunity. So we've had fennel trials up in the top left. Let's taste all these different fennels side by side. Some are very anisey, some are very mild. So we have trials out in the field. We know how they perform in the field. And then at an event like this, we get to know what people think about how they taste. So beets at the bottom, they get to eat them raw and and roasted. So it's a really cool way to kind of get to experience diversity. And then, like I said, we have the chefs that make something really fantastic to eat, and they always make something very unusual. So this is what the tromboncino squash that Jim Myers is breeding, and the chef made some, they dried them and made like lollipops, as they called them. And they also made a soda. So things that are very unexpected. This is Phil Simon from USDA in Wisconsin, and Lori McKenzie, who used to be with the Organic Seed Alliance, showing off their carrot breeding work, which is really spectacular. You can kind of see some of the examples of raw carrots. So they look very different from one another. They're focused on nutrition and flavor and, of course, breeding for organic systems. So it's a way to get a lot of input from consumers and what they think about these different carrots. And we also have a lot of grains. So this is Colin, who was a PhD student at the Bread Lab. I think he now works for Bejo, paired up with a baker. And then Frank Morton, as many people know from Wild Garden Seed, had this really cool project with different types of parsley that he was growing, all seed that he got from the GRIN database from lots of different countries, like 10 different countries, 14 accessions, and they tasted wildly different from one another, which was really cool, and had a chef that made a gratin with it. And again, there's so many different, I always think of it like an onion. There's so many layers to this seed work. There's so many layers to what it is, the values of the seed folks at each of the tables are really addressing in their work. And so we're also making sure that people understand all of that when they come to these events. I'm just going to go through some of these just so that you can kind of get a sense. And again, the idea is that maybe you find inspiration and want to organize something like this within your own community. Of course, I did not start this elaborate. Now I'm having very big events with, obviously with very fancy, wedding tents and all these types of things. But I started with $2,000 that I got from Organically Grown Company, which is our wholesale distributor. And I used there's a bicycle components manufacturing facility, and I used their cafeteria. They let me utilize that, and we had like 10 tables. So they look extravagant now, but it didn't start that way. Just like anything, right? Especially in the organic seed community, we're starting from kind of grassroots and growing. So now these are oftentimes they are supported by grants and sponsorships and ticket sales, but it didn't start that way. So don't have this make you feel like you can't do this, because you can. This is the one that just happened this last October in the Hudson Valley in New York. So here's, we put up these big tents and we had tables. And what's so great is the seed folks at each of the table really come through with just making the most beautiful displays to get people very interested by just the sheer beauty of the vegetables and grains and fruits and nuts and pulses that they're presenting to us. So here's some work on okra and an okra seed oil. The one on the left is from the Palestinian Seed Library. The one on the right, Utopian Seed Project. And then we've got pink cabbage from Philip Griffiths up in Cornell. And then of course, people love the seed diversity in beans all the time in pulses. And then we have indigenous partners that are we're looking at the types of foods that they have utilized for many, many years that a lot of people just don't even know about today. So we have corns and squash that are utilized by indigenous communities. Okay, so that was the variety showcase. I just wanted to show you a little bit about what that is, what that was all about, and this focus was on seed. And now I also organize an event called a Sagra. And these are just two examples of posters, because that's what I also try to do, is to get people really interested in wanting to come to these events where we're actually addressing some very heavy, issues like climate change and seed sovereignty. Rather than advertising it in that way, I try to make sure that the advertisements look very beautiful and they look more like a food event. But like I said, like I always say to people, it's kind of a trick. I'm trying to get people into the room. It is very beautiful. It's very tasty. It's all wonderful like that. But it really is about educating people about our seed system. Okay, so the Sagra, this is one that's coming up in December. So I have the variety showcase that's happening in Portland in September, and then also in Portland in December, this Sagra. I have some that are happening in other parts of the country coming up. I'll tell you about that at the end of the presentation. So the Sagra is really inspired by these Italian celebrations of that name, where there's like 25,000 of these every year in Italy, where there's celebrations of local foods. A lot of times they're vegetables or dishes in an area that they want to preserve the heritage of. And so these festivals I started organizing here, and really the idea is that to build excitement and increase consumer demand for the vegetables and grains and fruits that we're focusing on. So I've had several of these events. They attract a lot of people. 500 people came to the last one. And this is called the Sagra del Radicchio, but there's 40 tables and there's 20, probably maybe 18 that are focused on Radicchio. And then all the others are kind of what I call like the underdogs, like the underappreciated or lesser known crops that people can eat during the winter time that they might not know about. So this is the space. It's a really big space that I get. I have a good relationship with a nonprofit that rents out this space to businesses, and then the money that they make off of that is subsidized for their community partners to make it affordable for us to have our community events. We share the same mission, so they give me this a discount for this. It's a sponsorship. And so we might really geek out on things like radicchio and garlic, things that maybe people just don't know that much. Garlic, people don't know the differences in all the different garlics. So we just like to have these kind of like deep dives at these events, right, to learn more. So you see Andrew Still from Adaptive Seeds talking all about garlic to them here. And again, these are all tables that this isn't the seed folks or the breeders. These are actual farmers. So this is on the left-hand side here, Mary and Brian from Wild Roots Farm in Corbett, Oregon, and they grow Treviso Tardivo. It's an Italian way of growing a particular radicchio. So they have a table and they're matched up with a chef. We also do demonstrations. You can see on the bottom right-hand side, we have Kathy Wims that's doing a demonstration on how to cook with radicchio. There's another one. So it's really about empowering people to make these things for themselves in their home, not just going out to a restaurant and eating it, but how do you make this simply and deliciously at home? Just pictures of, you might know about on the right-hand side here, I'm standing with Brian Campbell from Uprising Seeds and Andrea Gadina from Smarties in Italy. We have a project called the Gusto Italiano project, where we have Andrea's seeds are sold through Uprising Seeds so that we can have really good quality radicchio seed in the United States. Also like to try to incorporate art into this. This is Alice Farmiga from eOrganic that has done like an art exhibit of different types of chicories throughout the many years of 100 years of and plus of these are from I think the 1700s. These prints are right next to her. So just different ways of engaging people and getting them really excited about vegetables and grains and fruits and nuts and all the things, right? Okay, so what's really nice too is I'm trying to get a lot of people to know about this, right? And not everybody can come to these events. So I try to work with journalists to get these out into this information out into the world. So if you also are just starting out, like a lot of times there's edible magazines in different communities, I would reach out to people that work for those magazines, or even if it's just like your public radio station or something, and invite them to come to them. This is how it gets started. A lot of people ask me, I'm telling this to you because a lot of people ask me, oh, come to where we are, come to Iowa, come to California, or come to Texas and organize this event. But the thing is that I don't know, and I won't be able to understand what each community needs, but the people within that community do. Right. So when I have done the variety showcase in Hawaii a couple of times. I work with a partner there. It's their relationships. They are building the community. I'm just helping them to utilize the framework that I have used. But it really is, every community has different needs. So I just really believe that it's important for folks to organize these in their own communities. Okay, and the Sagra has a very big impact because for farmers, this is a particular Fill Your Pantry event that we did. The Fill Your Pantry event was organized by one organization. I created a Sagra that happened at the same time, and there was a lot of sales that happened for increased sales for the farmers that typically did the Fill Your Pantry. So there's 31 farmers, and they sold more than 25,000 more than when they did it without the Sagra. So that's really exciting. Okay, another event that I organize, which is completely free to the public. And it's really about building these relationships within your own community. There's a market called Well Spent Market that is in Portland, Oregon. They sell some vegetables, but they also sell a lot of cooking ingredients. Basically, the staples: olive oil, vinegars, salt, a lot of different herbs, spices, pastes, sauces, all kinds of things, right? And so they're really about empowering people to home cook, and they're wanting them to come and buy the ingredients that they need from their market. So I organize a annual tomato fest with them, and this is a really great place for us to get a lot of feedback on breeding, talk about different varieties, and introduce new types of tomatoes to consumers. So This is how we promote it on social media. We're like, hey, there's a tomato fest. It's free. It's open to the public. It's outside. And there's going to be all kinds of things for you to do and people to talk to, things to learn, and things to try and taste. So this is an example of what it looks like. It's just a series of tents outside, kind of like, it looks like a little mini farmer's market, right? So here we are. What I'm holding here are these two are both called pianolo, and so these are winter tomatoes that are grown a little bit like cherry tomatoes. They are strung up on the trusses like this, and but the thing is that they are not eaten fresh right away. After a few weeks, they start to taste better, and they last for months like this. And so they are winter tomatoes because they will last into the winter time. And these are dry farms. So I'm working with the Dry Farm Institute. And so on the left here is Amy Garrett, and she runs the Dry Farm Institute. And these are dry farms. They're from the south of Italy and have been grown without water for many, many years. And so they already have been selected this way for, decades. So we put together these exploration boxes. So you can see on the top left-hand side, this is actually the inside of a box where we introduce these to consumers. They buy them. The nonprofit, the Dry Farm Institute, gets the proceeds from that. And it's a really great way to introduce something new to people. They're very beautiful. So people love to buy them just to hang them in their kitchen. And you can see behind Amy, this fellow John, he's actually making the trusses in the back. So it's just like this whole very fun and exciting and educational kind of event. And they sell out of this every year. And so this is also his place that Jim Myers, who I talked to you about before with Novik, he also is a tomato breeder. He's the first breeder of the indigo. He bred the first variety of the indigo tomatoes. And so this is where he kind of introduces breeding lines to and gets feedback from consumers. And this is Matt Davis, who's at Oregon State University, and he dry farms tomatoes and melons. Again, getting feedback from consumers. He's doing it out in the field. He knows which ones perform the best. And then he gives away these little bags that have samples, and he's holding up a little tasting ballot. It has just like the directions on how to do the tasting with the QR code, and that's seed linked. And so there's citizen science that, people love doing this type of thing. And so they get to be part of, choosing which ones they think that taste the best. And here's the same thing with melons. And the Dry Farm Institute sells these melon, we call them exploration boxes. So people can get maybe introduced to different types of melons that they've never tasted before that do well dry farmed. And then farmers are there also just selling their tomatoes that they have dry farmed on their farms. For additional interaction and education, we've got this is Martha Holmberg on the left, who wrote a book just recently called Simply Tomato. She does some tomato recipe demos. And on the right-hand side is Nikki Guerrero, and she creates these value-added, this is a mermelada that she made with the dry farm tomatoes. So it's all about getting people excited about something new that they can support locally. And then, of course, we have people that are selling BLTs and other pastries and things made with tomato to get people just excited about tomatoes. These have been very, very successful and really fun events for the participants and the attendees. Additionally, I have done, and I said I don't do a lot. Whenever I'm doing work like this somewhere else, and this is happening in northern Italy, I'm doing it with another person. So a lot of times, like I said, I've done this work in Hawaii, in New York, in Madison, Wisconsin. And so I'm always working with partners there that are telling me what it is that the needs are in that community. So this is called the jazz, which is a dialect word for ice. And so since I have done a lot of the Sagra events that focus on the winter time and what we can eat then, and this is a friend of mine, Mirta, who owns a farm in the north of Italy, has wanted to bring together the community there, which is very detached from one another and a lot of times very far from one another, to celebrate winter vegetables. And so this one is a winter vegetable celebration, very similar. Different farmers, make their tables, design their tables, and present what they grow in the wintertime. A lot of really unusual vegetables that we don't have here in the US. Okay, so I'm at the end of my slides. I wanted to leave plenty of time for questions. I do want to say that, again, the Variety Showcase is happening in Portland, Oregon, and September 8th. If you're interested in that, the tickets are on sale now. I will say that also, and so in this particular, at this particular event, there's a lot of dry farmed tables. There's 40 tables. There's about 8 that focus on dry farmed produce and corn. We have a lot of grains. I think there's 10 grains tables. And then there's a lot of Jim Meyer's work because he is the breeder at Oregon State University, who will soon be retiring. And he's finally also releasing those 2 mild habaneros that I told you about. So those will be there, and we'll be promoting and getting people excited about that. This event does move around the country. So it is, if you're nowhere near Portland, Oregon, next year it will be in Madison, Wisconsin. In 2026, it'll be in the Hudson Valley. 2027, it will be in the Southeast. And then 2028, back in Portland. They are planned out pretty well in advance because I write them into research projects, and we get grants to partially fund them. And so I can plan ahead. So to keep up with this, to find any more information about the Culinary Breeding Network and the most recent up to date things that you can find out about will be on Instagram. So there's an Instagram, Culinary Breeding Network. There also is one Chicory Week that focuses all on radicchio. The website's culinarybreedingnetwork.com. There's also one specific for winter vegetables. It's Eat Winter Vegetables. And then the Eat Radicchio is basically the Chicory Week website, which is just it'll have information about the Sagra del Radicchio, but everything will be on the Culinary Breeding Network Instagram. One thing I didn't mention but we have had a lot of activity, especially during COVID, is a YouTube channel. So I started this YouTube channel during COVID, and there is a ton of information on presentations by different folks. It's kind of like an online conference like this that we did in lieu of doing these events. So there's a garlic week, and there's a brassicas week, and so there's over 200 presentations by researchers and seed folks and growers and folklore specialists and all these different individuals focusing on talking about different winter vegetables. There's also a radicchio symposium where the visiting Italians came and gave us a lot of information about how to grow radicchio. So please take a look at that and see if there's anything that's of interest to you there. But again, don't hesitate to contact me. This is my email, and I look forward to hearing. I would love to hear if you do decide to organize something that in your own community that was inspired by this work. And if you have any questions about how to actually make that happen, I'm here to talk about that. So thank you so much. I take any questions you have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lane. I found myself just really smiling and nodding through that whole presentation and seeing the joy in people's faces in those photos. And I'll just, as we kind of, again, everyone can feel free to, there are a couple of questions in the chat already, but I just wanted to say one of my favorite perks, I will call it, of working for Seed Savers Exchange is when I'm on the farm, when the people that run our ADAPT, our community science program, are evaluating their trials, and we get sometimes open it up to staff to be the tasters. And it is just so much fun and really interesting. And last year I went home with a bunch of peppers, some of which were very, very spicy. But still, yeah, just really fun. So I will just also, and you did mention this earlier in your presentation, I think when people see those big tents and the big events, I'll just, again, highlight what you said about starting small, just inviting your neighbors.
Yeah.
And Seed Savers Exchange has a community science program, and we use Seed Linked as well. So that's another great place if you're looking to be involved. And Seed Savers will send you seeds for trials. And yeah, it's up to you to invite your neighbors over and test some things and look at stuff. So, and I have a question here from Abby Fenton. Do you have any of these gatherings in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, or Minnesota? And sort of a follow-up question with that. And are you looking for new venues, educational farm to partner with and hosting?
So. Great, thank you. Okay, so yes, for the variety showcase, as I mentioned, it'll be in Madison, Wisconsin next year. So for those of you guys that are in the Midwest, you might know Julie Dawson. She's at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and she runs the sorry, I'm going to say this wrong. Seed to Kitchen Collaborative, and she has an event called Farm to Flavor, and when we do the variety showcase, it's with her and that. So she usually has that every year, the Farm to Flavor in Madison, Wisconsin. And then so we'll have the variety showcase, like I said, like as a kind of collaboration with her next year, probably September or October. So if you follow, Culinary Breeding Network on Instagram, or you sign up also for the newsletter, which you can find at on the website, then you can find out more information about that. So yes, that's happening. And then I don't know where the Montessori school is, but yes, please contact me and ask me. This would be great. And yeah, it depends on, so hosting, I don't know if they mean hosting events or trials, but I would love to hear from you. And yeah, it always depends on where it is, what projects we have going on right now, funding for. But I'm always wanting to bring more people in and figure out how, because anyone that is interested in being involved, I want them to be involved.
Yeah, great. And I will also mention that Seed Savers Exchange in Decorah, Iowa at Heritage Farm will be hosting, we're bringing back our tomato tasting event this year, the first time since COVID. So we're very excited to do that. We will have tastings and workshops, with tips on how to grow, how to process for seed saving, and some cooking demonstrations too. So that's always been a very popular event. So if you're in the Midwest or want to make a trip to Decorah, reach out to me. It's also a free event.
It's great.
Wonderful. And also thank you, Natalie, our chat moderator, for being on top of all of these links. So thank you for sharing those. And I'm not seeing, let's see if we've got any more questions. Yes, here we go.
Oh, yes.
Did you say that the 2027 was in the Southeast or the Southwest? I'm in
Southeast.
Southeast.
Yeah. Yep. Southeast. There's a new project that's starting that is in the Southeast. So it'll probably be in Charleston or somewhere near Clemson University. Okay, I can answer this question. Yeah. So a lot of these, so some of these projects are funded by really big, like I said, like there's researchers and plant breeders from universities all over the country, and they're really these very big events. But there is something in each state called the Specialty Crop Block Program Grant. So those are by the Department of Agriculture in each state. So it's Specialty Crop Block Program Grant. Weird name. But I write a lot of those grants, which are much simpler grants to write. And they can be a nonprofit. I don't know if you can be like a business to do that, but and then also but look into that. But you could also partner with someone at a local university. If you have a land grant university, you could contact someone there. If I had a farmer contact me and said, hey, I really want to do this, I would write a grant based on it. I mean, I guess depending on what you're asking for, but this would be something really perfect. So those are very much like a specialty crop is basically anything that's not a commodity crop. So most things fall under this category, and that's all about promotion and marketing for farmers. So there's that. And then there's also a lot of times small grants, if you can try to find them through we have like a soil and water conservation district. And so they give out money to organize these. And so that's some place, because you can, I mean, we're working with dry farming, but it doesn't even have to be that specific really about, utilizing water. And actually like smaller, like individuals and smaller nonprofits are more successful in getting those because they want to support, smaller organizations that don't often get, these big grants. I'm trying to think. There's other. I mean, like I said, the first time I did this, it was the organic like produce distributor that was the one that pretty much paid for everything. It was only $2,000. So, again, these are all very, very grassroots, and so I got money from them, and I just asked different folks if they would basically donate like a space, or people that want to be a part of it.
Mhm.
So I would say look at the conservation district. Sometimes you can find like foundations that give money. I don't do this because since I work at a university, but a lot of different nonprofits will get money from like the Myers Foundation or different foundations to support. And you might have to have like a nonprofit that goes through, but you can probably find one in your area. Oh, thank you for putting that up.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Natalie, for that link. Yes, I will also just echo the in-kind donation. So finding people in your community, if you need a space, asking for that as a donation can be really effective too.
Yeah, like the tomato festival does not cost very much. And it's, I'm finding what I've done is I found, okay, Well Spent Market, they get a lot out of it, right? They're like, okay, if people really want to, this is going to attract all these people that are home cooks, and we want them to come and buy, these things from us. They have incredible sales on that day. And it really is just pop-up tents that a lot of people have. If you're a farmer, you have pop-up tents and tables, and everybody kind of just sets up a little market. So those do not cost very much at all to organize for us. And I find, I mean, now I put it into grants and we get money to like support it. But again, it's not that much money, but like you saw in the pictures, like the person I asked to come and do a tomato demonstration is someone that's selling a tomato book. So she's pretty happy just to come. She doesn't need to get paid. Like when people do demonstrations, I pay them a stipend to do that. But if they have a reason that they have something to sell, then it's just an opportunity for them, so remember that. And then like Nikki, who has Hot Mama Salsa, she can sell her hot sauces and her chili oils, and she makes something with the tomatoes. She does a demo, so you're trying to find those like common people that have a common mission, and and they're going to get something out of it too.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Okay. And I am just going to show this one too. Again, I had mentioned Seed Savers Adapt program. That's our community science program that 2024 is happening right now. We also work with Seedlinked, but 2025 interest form is open. So if you have any interest in signing up for that, you can find that on the Seed Savers website. And if there are any other questions, feel free to add them into the chat. But I just want to also thank our title sponsor, again, UNFI, for sponsoring today's sessions on plant breeding. And say that next up, we have From Soil to Seed, Unlocking the Secrets of Nutrient-Dense Gardening. So that's going to start in about half an hour. So feel free to Get up, stretch, drink some water, step outside, get some sunshine, hopefully wherever you are. It was great to see the scope and reach of how many people are coming from all over the country. I always love to see where people are coming from. And great. Here we go. Actually, Laura has a question here. Have you had any contact with the Danforth Center for Plant Science in St. Louis, Missouri? They do much breeding work, though they're also studying genetic modification. Isn't that what breeding includes?
I have not, but this is great advice, and I will make note of that right now.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Laura. Well, thank you, Lane. Thank you for being here. And again, I just feel really energized from seeing all of those photos. I got some inspiration for our events at Seed Savers too, from setups. It looks like it was just beautiful displays and so many happy faces. So
yeah, I feel like I put a lot of pressure on people to make it really beautiful because I'm trying to make things like, I mean, I work at a university, right? And a lot of things can be very wordy, and a lot of things can kind of be like just really focused on that aspect of like education in this traditional way. So I'm like, people and like I mean, you know, we look at Instagram, we look at TikTok, everything is just about how things look and everything. So it's just like, let's make it really beautiful and it'll draw people in. Yeah.
All right. And actually here we've got Tamara here. Can you say that name of that tomato bundle again?
Okay. Let me see. Can I write in here?
No, but if you say it,
okay.
Natalie will type it in.
Okay, Pianolo. So it's Piennolo. That's a type of that's. So there's two. So I'm just going to say that you can buy all three of the ones that I showed you from Uprising Seeds. There's Pianolo Rosso, which is just red, and Gallo, which is yellow, and then there's one called Annarita, Annarita. And these are the three that are the winter tomatoes that they offer. Yeah, Pianolo, exactly. Thank you. It means, as a dialect word, that means hanging, like in somewhere in southern Italy. So they're becoming more and more popular. It was hard to find the seed for it, and then we got some, and Uprising has been, you know, maintaining it and improving it and finding, you know, getting just like the ones that grow the best in, at least in our area. So yeah, they're very pretty. And I do have I had to send this to you later. I have, because I don't know what it is. I have like a Google folder that has like descriptions for each of them that you could use if you're, you know, if you're selling them, if you're a farmer that wants to sell them at the farmer's market or promote it on Instagram. I do have, but you could probably just use what Uprising has as well, you know. Yeah.
And this is from Sean at Living Seeds,
Oh, wow.
connecting from South Africa. So
wow,
thank you for joining us. So we appreciate you being here too.
Great. I appreciate you. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, let me just say again, our next session is coming up in about half an hour. And Lane, thank you again so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye.